Travis Donraj said he was used as a token of diversity. And in his own blunt words, and I will repeat his blunt words, the CBC didn't get the brown guy that they thought they were going to get, end quote. He said he discovered this when he tried to be inclusive of conservative news views on his show, Conservative Views. So what steps have you personally taken to address these systemic issues?
An organization called Cult MTL. It's a self-proclaimed politically left tabloid that exists online, and the Heritage Department deems it as, quote, journalism. They've given them a grant to that effect. It was given in 2024-2025. On September 11th, the day after Charlie Kirk's assassination, this organization released an article titled "To Hell with Charlie Kirk." And the article makes light of his assassination and then ends with these words, "You reap what you sow."
When you did meet with the new CEO of CBC, Marie-Philippe Boucher, you did not raise the workplace culture or the toxic atmosphere at CBC, or did you? Yes or no?
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
True pleasure to welcome the Honourable Stephen Guilbeault, Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture and Minister responsible for official languages, accompanied by senior officials. Luckily, they're all named Andrew, so we won't have pretty much, except for Isabel. So thank you all for being here. Minister, you have 5 minutes.
Sorry, point of order.
Point of order from Mrs. Thomas.
My apologies, Minister. This will only take a moment, and that is this. The motion that was moved for this study asked for the Minister to be here for 2 hours, and I just want to make sure that that is, in fact, what the Minister has agreed to.
It's my understanding that the Minister is here for 1 hour.
To get into the nitty-gritty day-to-day, but this is not the first employee that's come forward with concerns. There's been numerous of concerns brought forward with regards to the toxic culture that exists at the CBC. Ultimately, you are responsible for having appointed the CEO, and she does answer to you as the Minister. You have the ability to move her out should that be needed. Have you had a conversation with the CEO with regards to the toxic culture that exists there?
Comme vous le savez probablement, la nouvelle...
As you may know, the new CEO has been on the job since, 6 months? So since last December. I have had the pleasure of meeting her once since I have come to this job, and I imagine since she's on the job. And as I've repeated, our expectations as a government are, whether it be CBC Radio-Canada or any other Crown corporation or department, everything must be done.
I'm going to take that as a no, and I think that's incredibly shameful that as a minister you wouldn't take enough interest in the well-being.
You asked me if I met her, and I said I did.
To pick up the phone and just have a conversation with the CEO and figure out what the heck's going on there. I share my time with my colleague Carrie Diot.
Mr. Minister, I heard you say that you believe in the principles of diversity and inclusion, correct?
Oui, c'est exact.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
One of the core stated responsibilities of your Heritage Ministry Department is diversity and inclusion, and yet Travis Donraj said he was used as a token of diversity. And in his own blunt words, and I will repeat his blunt words, the CBC didn't get the brown guy that they thought they were going to get, end quote. He said he discovered this when he tried to be inclusive of conservative news views on his show, Conservative Views. So what steps have you personally taken to address these systemic issues?
Je pense qu'il faut faire très attention en tant que parlementaire.
I think you have to be careful about not taking one event or several isolated events and then generalizing from there. If you look at what's being done at the public broadcaster on radio, on TV, in recent years, there have been considerable efforts made for diversity and inclusion. Is it perfect? No. I don't think anybody is perfect in this area. I think there have been significant improvements, and this is certainly going to be part of the conversations which I will be having with the new CEO of CBC to know how we can continue to improve, how can the public broadcaster continue to improve in this matter.
quote, workplace defined by retaliation, exclusion, and psychological harm. So that workplace, the CBC, received nearly $1.4 billion in taxpayers' funds from your department last year. So as the minister responsible for the CBC, are you concerned that your department is funding a workplace that has been described in this way?
Encore une fois, je suis vraiment désolé pour l'expérience de travail que cette personne a.
Again, I am truly sorry about the work experience this individual had, but I refuse to generalize to the entire public broadcaster about these. I know several people that work there and people who are there as a result of diversity who have personally told me several times how the work climate there is very positive. It's possible that for that individual that things did not go well at all, and I'm very sorry about that. As I said, I think it's always possible to do better, and we'll be working with the public broadcaster so that we can do better.
Canadian Heritage has planned to spend $281 million on diversity and inclusion in the coming year. So will any of this money go towards ensuring there is a diversity and equity in the opinions broadcast on CBC?
I think you have to be very careful. In Canada, we have a public broadcaster, but it's not a government broadcaster. Our government doesn't tell the CBC what to say and what not to say. That's done in authoritarian countries. But in a democracy, whether it's here or in France or in Germany, EBC in Australia, the government does not intervene in programming and in broadcasting. We ensure that the public broadcaster is properly managed and is managing public funding, and we are responsible to Parliament. It's absolutely out of the question to have the government become involved in the daily activities.
Ethnic media outlets play a crucial role in ensuring that Canada's diverse communities see themselves reflected in our media landscape. In Port Moody, Coquitlam, we've heard from groups like the Canadian Ethnic Media Producers Association and local outlets such as Parvaz Media and KTV Media about the need for sustainable funding. What steps is the government taking to support ethnic media organizations so that they can continue serving their communities and contribute to Canada's cultural fabric?
Merci beaucoup pour la question. I think there's a number of things that the government is doing to try and foster this particular Canadian ethnic media producers across the country. So we have the Changing Narratives Fund, what we call the CNF, which is a $10 million investment over 3 years to support diverse voices in Canadian media, support diverse communities, Indigenous, Black, racialized, ethno-religious minorities, people with disabilities. We also have the Canadian Media Fund that supports diverse communities in television, digital media, screen industry, and cinematic production industries. In fact, the CNF is a stream of the CMF, so the Changing Narratives Fund is under the Canadian Media Fund. Prioritize projects that foster the development of an inclusion audiovisual sector. We also have the Local Journalism Initiative that supports diverse communities in written press, community radio, community television, and online news services. It's delivered by a non-for-profit organization to protect the independence of the press, so the government doesn't decide who gets money through that. And there's a priority to hiring diverse journalistic representation. And finally, the last example I would give is the collective initiatives component of the Canada Periodical Fund that supports diverse communities in the magazine and newspaper industries.
Merci. Thank you very much. In 2012, in my riding of Port Moody Coquitlam, Amanda Todd, a young 13-year-old teenager, tragically lost her life after relentless cyberbullying and non-consensual distribution of her private images. Her story is a powerful reminder of the devastating consequences of online exploitation. Today, with the rise of AI-generated deepfakes, women and marginalized groups are being disproportionately targeted. What can our government do to ensure stronger protections and supports for those most vulnerable to these evolving forms of online sexual exploitation?
As a father of 3 girls, my heart goes out to Amanda's family, and what happened to her should never happen to anyone. Online safety is certainly about protecting kids. but it's obviously more than that. So we're committing to making a criminal offense to distribute non-consensual sexual deepfakes and increase penalties for the non-consensual distribution of intimate images by strengthening the criminal code. I believe, as we're speaking, in fact, my colleague, Minister Fraser, is in the House of Commons, speaking on his new bill C9. And in terms of platforms, we've made a commitment to combat online harms. I have myself worked on that during my first passage at Heritage between 2019 and 2021. Many of my colleagues have continued on that. We tabled a bill in last Parliament, C63, that was aimed not specifically at online harms, but also modernizing the criminal code. So we will be introducing measures to address hate speech, terrorist content, and the harmful distribution of intimate images.
An organization called MTL. It's a self-proclaimed politically left tabloid that exists online, and the Heritage Department deems it as, quote, journalism. They've given them a grant to that effect. It was given in 2024-2025. On September 11th, the day after Charlie Kirk's assassination, this organization released an article titled "To Hell with Charlie Kirk." And the article makes light of his assassination and then ends with these words, "You reap what you sow." Now, I'm an advocate for free speech, so as much as I find these words disgusting, I'll defend their right to say them. However, what I do find indefensible is the fact that Canadian tax dollars were used in order to propagate this type of material. Do you believe that that's wrong as well?
Honnêtement, j'ai vérifié avec la sous-ministre. On n'a pas...
Honestly, I checked with the Deputy Minister. We have not been made aware of this. I can undertake to quickly look into this with the department and see what, in fact, was printed in this newspaper, and we'll come back to you and convey this to all of the members of the committee.
The article here with me, so I could give it to you here today. Would you cut the funding to this organization, or would you continue to support this type of thought that is being put out there?
Sous toute réserve de vérification que le député...
Subject, of course, to any verifications that the department and I myself may do. Hate and spreading hate has no place in the public discourse in Canada, and we have legislation to that effect. As I said previously, we are not aware of what was written in this case, but we will make the necessary verifications.
Example of such actions that have been taken, and it's actually Canada's Special Representative on Combating Islamophobia co-founded an organization called the Anti-Hate Network. Now, they've been funded by your department to the tune of almost $1 million. And a portion of this money was used to hire what they're calling, quote, an investigative journalist. And what they're asking this person to do is find stories about what they're calling far-right groups and individuals. And a part of their definition of those that would fall within this group includes Catholics and people who identify as pro-life. Now, this investigative journalist would then go find stories or write stories and then give them to the mainstream media in order to get the narrative out there further. Now, as you can imagine, something like this only serves to divide people. It's a grave disservice to the unity of our country and the well-being of our people, and it spurs further polarization. Now, in the beginning, you stated, and I'll quote, that we need to unite and come together. So when an organization is taking almost $1 million from your government and using it to this end, do you believe that they should continue to be funded?
Comme je l'ai dit, effectivement, notre rôle...
As I've said, our role as a government and as members of parliament is to unite people and not work to divide them. With the department's team, I'll be looking at what was done by this organization. And if, in fact, what you're saying is true, we will take the necessary steps.
Revoke the tax dollars that are going into an organization like this? I mean, Minister, let's be clear. You're collecting tax dollars from people all across the country with all sorts of beliefs, from all sorts of backgrounds. And those dollars are being used towards an organization that's actually furthering or spurring greater polarization and arguably hate in this country by choosing to pick on certain groups of people. Minister, is that type of behavior excusable? Should we continue to use public dollars for that type of conduct?
C'est arrivé dans le passé que nous ayons retiré du financement des
In
organismes.
the past, we have withdrawn funding from organizations which did not act in keeping with the federal government's values. We will examine this particular case, and if it turns out that the organization does not deserve to continue receiving government funding, the funding will be withdrawn.
To hearing from you, I hope on the record, as to your decisions with regards to both these organizations, CAHN MTL, as well as the Anti-Hate Network. Minister, you did say that you had a welcome meeting with the CEO of the CBC. I'm just curious, to be clear, you did not at all bring up with her the workplace culture at the CBC and the fact that there are significant complaints and numerous complaints with regards to it being toxic in nature. That did not come up in your meeting with the CEO.
I'm sorry, there's no time for that response. You're out of time. Mrs. Thomas, perhaps you can.
Because you gave everyone else an additional 20 to 30 seconds.
You had an extra 20 to 30 seconds
no, I
in the
did not. I
first
had an
round,
extra
and now we're into
7.
the second round, and I'm trying to be more cognizant of everybody's time.
And to the millions of Canadians tuning in on CPAC right now. Minister, we often hear about the challenges facing Canada. We heard polarization just a moment ago. But I think Canadian heritage is uniquely placed to bringing people together. I know that's something that we share as a belief. I see this daily in Mississauga Centre. Can you highlight how the department is using culture, sport, and commemoration programs to strengthen national pride, unity, and reconciliation at a time when Canadians need it most?
Merci, Monsieur Al-Saoud. Je vais me permettre de vous parler.
Thank you,
en
Mr. Al-Saoud. I will speak French to you because you speak French very well. You're absolutely right. The department and related organizations can play a very important role in these matters in terms of pride and unity and even reconciliation. Few people know this, but Heritage is responsible for implementing the Indigenous Languages Act. The commissioners and directors, the Indigenous Languages Commissioner reports to Heritage. I was minister at the time, and we had the Act for the Day of Truth and Reconciliation, which we will be celebrating tomorrow. But there are several department programs, such as digital citizenship. We are funding projects to help fight disinformation, including in diversified and marginalized communities. But there's also a role played by the National Film Board or Telefilm Canada, or the very important role of national museums and historic sites that are managed by Parks Canada, which contribute to keeping our stories alive or bringing them alive. Thank you, Minister.
Mr. Minister, I just want to raise again this workplace culture with CBC that Ms. Thomas, I just want to get it on the record, if you don't mind. When you did meet with the new CEO of CBC, Marie-Philippe Boucher, you did not raise the workplace culture or the toxic atmosphere at CBC, or did you? Yes or no?
Madame Bouchard et moi avons parlé de plusieurs choses.
Madame Bouchard and I spoke about several things, including the importance for the public broadcaster of being aligned with Canadian values, of course, as well as the values being defended by the Canadian government.
You talk at all about the workplace culture that has all of a sudden percolated, if you don't mind me using that word, with the CBC recently?
Je pense que là-dessus, on va devoir s'entendre sur le fait qu'on ne s'entend pas. Moi, je ne partage pas votre opinion.
We have to agree to disagree. I don't agree that you can take a few isolated cases and generalize to the entire public broadcaster when it comes to the whole issue of the atmosphere at work and working conditions for thousands of employees at CBC. We can't take a few isolated examples and say that this is the way it is for everybody. I don't share your point of view. But where I do agree with you,
Oh, I mean, it was on every...
Médiatisé, mais ça ne
yes,
fait
it's
pas...
got a lot of media coverage. But that doesn't mean that the situation is generalized across the public broadcaster. That's where I don't agree with you and your colleague. I don't share that point of view.
You share this, Minister, with the CBC. As you all know, the viewership is down, the revenue is down, and in fact, the trust is down. And the former CEO, when we had Ms. Tate here actually agreed with the trust in CBC is down. The streaming platform subscriptions, we don't know where they are, but now your leader has promised another $150 million to CBC. How is this possible? I'll tell you what it is done in Western Canada. Okay, CKSA Lloydminster has served that community for 60 years. Stingray shut the station down because CBC's there now. And the same with CHAT Medicine Hat. 70 years in that community, television is gone. 70 years in Medicine Hat, gone. So while you say the public broadcaster is this and that, I want you to know the public broadcaster has crept in and has destroyed private media in this country. I gave you 2 examples here, 60 and 70 years. Your thoughts on that? How is this reasonable?
Nous en avons parlé tout à l'heure avec votre collègue.
We discussed this earlier with your colleague, Mr. Champoux. In Canada, and when I'm talking about traditional media, in Canada, as elsewhere, everywhere else in the world, or almost, is experiencing difficulties with the advent of the online platforms, with advertising budgets that have gone from local television and newspapers to the web giants. I think looking at a global problem and saying that it's Radio-Canada or CBC's fault, well, I just don't agree with that. And I see that people across the country are saying, we want CBC here in our community. I've heard that across the country.
They hide the numbers of GEM. You know, there was an ATIP on CBC this summer asking just, how many subscriptions do you have to GEM? Oh, we can't tell you that because it wouldn't be fair to our competitors. Crave, which is owned by Bell Media, actually has 3.8 million subscribers in this country. And yet, for CBC GEM, we can't share it. There's free subscriptions, and then there's the paid, $5.99 a month, I think. So is that fair when you say, you know, the public broadcaster is hiding when they're asked? We'd like to know how much money is put into GEM. How many viewers? It might be, Minister, that GEM is useless and it should have been torched a long time ago. So when they're covering up, as a former broadcaster, when I see them, oh, we can't tell you, then I know there's red flags with the corporation. I know that for sure. And in Ontario, I'll just tell you, 0.35% of the streaming market in Ontario participated in CBC GEM. That's not even 1% of the province of Ontario. So that tells me little or no participation in this country on GEM, whether it's free or subscription-wise.
Thank you, Mr. Waugh. That's your time.